and there was a woman defecating in a doorway. Lots and lots of homeless people lurching around, immigrant urban chaos, the culture and society fragmenting. And it was like walking through, I don't know, some dystopian landscape, dystopian nightmare of a landscape. You've got all the really multi-million pound flats and there's lots of money there, but on the ground, on the streets, I was just walking from Victoria to Piccadilly, and there were like marauding gangs of Asian lads, all hooded in black tracksuits. There were just lots and lots of homeless people lurching around, dead in the eyes. All of a similar demographic, actually, all of our demographic, kind of white working class men, basically, of a particular age. There was some women as well, and there was a woman defecating in a doorway. Um, and I just walked through this. And this is, my city, my town. And I thought, my God, how incredibly it's changed. And this all, Manchester's always been a bit of a tough city. And I remember going there in the 70s with my dad, and, and it was very tough. It was a tough city before regeneration and all of that kind of stuff in the 80s. But I thought, this is just terrible. Manchester is suffering massively. Primarily, I would say the root cause of all of that is mass immigration. Okay, because I think from mass immigration, you get massive population swell. You get a sense of the culture and society fragmenting. You get pressure on all the basic services. Okay, so housing, education, welfare, all of that. Okay, and you get a sense of balkanization as well. It's almost, I've been thinking quite a lot about civil war lately. What a great conversation to have. But we've got all of the conditions for that kind of thing. All of those things that I've just said are essentially conditions for civil war and very belligerent particular groups. And I just couldn't help thinking about that as I was walking through the town centre. So I tweeted about it because I was actually quite upset. Oh God, this is my town. And the tweet kind of went viral. It's had just short of 1 million views, and lots and lots of people were agreeing with me. People from Manchester were saying, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what we see. And it's so tragic and it's so sad. And so that's essentially the story around the tweet.
Yeah, and that's why I reached out to you. I'm not sure if you know, but let me give you a little bit about on my background. So I worked for Manchester Council for a decade. 2 of those years, I was in charge of Manchester City Centre in terms of reducing crime and antisocial behaviour. I was based in the old Bootle Street police station, and that was my job. And then more recently, I've stood to be mayor of Greater Manchester. And obviously, a lot of that work and a lot of the profile is around Manchester City Centre. So I know this extremely well. Mass migration has put a heavy strain on all our cities and many of our towns. But before that, it was the liberal policies that have been destroying our large towns and our inner cities, and basically white working class men. They've been the number one been put at disadvantage because of these policies. Let me give you some examples here. So I spent years dealing with the homeless in Manchester City Centre. 10, 20 years ago, the problem really was a mental health problem. So we'd have people who would have mental health problems for decades, fall through safety nets, start using drugs to dampen down the pain, end up on the streets. And the council basically would offer them very little services. And it'd be take it or leave it. This is what we can do for you, take it or leave it. Roll on to today. 70-80% of the homeless people on the streets in Manchester City Centre today weren't even born in the country. Because we're importing people now to live on the streets. Did you see all the tents in St. Albert Square?
Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them before. Yeah.
All of them, asylum seekers, immigrants. And what they're doing is they're pressurizing the council to give them housing. So they turn up, they've got leave to remain now. So initially, when you're asylum seeker, you're given a 4-star hotel. Once you're given leave to remain, the free hotels stop. And then you're sent to a council to say the council will deal with you now. So they turn up at Manchester because Manchester's a soft touch and everyone knows it's a soft touch. So they turn up, camp outside the town hall until they're given what they want to be given. So it's a new blackmail. They're saying to the council, we're going to give you bad publicity until you house us. And the second you house us, another 30 will turn up and they'll do exactly the same sort of thing. Same thing happening in Glasgow as well. The city's been failing for a long time, even though parts of it look fantastic. Many of, like you say, the new build, the flats, are not for local people, not even for British people, they're for foreigners. And many of the flats will stay empty because foreigners, especially Chinese, are buying them to get their money out of China in case the government ever takes it and confiscates it. They invest it in a flat in the city centre, leave it empty, knowing it will always go up in price. And if I ever have to flee this Chinese authoritarian regime, I've got stuff abroad that I can go to. So they're using it as an anchor somewhere.
I think I think it's quite similar to London in that way, isn't it? Manchester is becoming a second London, primarily because London's priced itself out of the market in a sense, and the market's saturated. But one of the things that you just said there that I wanted to pick up on, which is very, very important, and it's this idea that local people, Manx, people like me and you, can't actually afford to live in the city anymore because all of this business, and you're quite right, it's primarily Chinese, isn't it? But there's a lot of money from the Middle East as well. You know, these empty boxes are bought as investments, which drives the price up. Property companies, it started with companies like Urban Splash, didn't it, in the 80s and 90s, but there are lots of others now, I would imagine, are keen to pick up on that because the prices are going through the roof. And you've got this pretty soulless city centre. Now, it's not all that. You go into the Northern Quarter and there's obviously lots and lots of stuff going on, but you don't see that many Mancunians there, actually. It's all middle class, chattering class people who are imported via the universities and the creative class and all of that kind of thing. But there's something, because I keep going back to the city I grew up in, and first of all, there weren't that many people who lived in the city centre. Certainly, there were next to nobody who lived in the city centre before the kind of late 1980s, early 1990s. In a way, that didn't matter towards the end of the 80s because there was something going on in Manchester which was just so exciting, and that was the music scene, right? So it was all part of it. There was clubs every night. You mentioned Bootle Street. There was an amazing club on Bootle Street called 42nd Street, which originally had been, you're laughing, you recognise it, yeah, which originally had been George Best's club. It was Slack Alice in the 70s, and everybody used to go there. My dad used to go there. Everybody used to go there. So all of that big scene, that was very specific to Manchester, right? It was very specific to Manchester. I feel as though that has dissipated now. It's not quite the same thing as it was because it's become a global city. And when you have a global city with all of that investment, you by definition get a sense of exclusion, and that exclusion is, again, it's people like you and me. It's working class people from Manchester who've grown up and lived in Manchester all their lives. They're being pushed out now further and further away. But not only that, they probably don't necessarily want to live among what you've just described, which is that kind of immigrant urban chaos, which is filthy. It has to be, because there are there's a encampment of tents in the city centre, but two, it's dangerous as well. And we might talk about this a little bit later on, but the kinds of people we're importing, it's the same thing again all over the country. We're importing people with no skills, who can't speak English, who are primarily male, who are from cultures that are really not compatible with a very sophisticated, very fast-moving culture like Manchester's cultural life and city centre.